I want to talk to you guys about qualifying. Juliana, you said it was ridiculous. Yeah, they did say they are going to address it, and I don't think F1 would have wanted a lifeline like having a month off. Obviously, because of events in the Middle East, they couldn't race. But I want to start with whoever wants to explain this. I want you guys to talk about this when we set it up, as if somebody listening only watches Sundays. They don't get to see Saturday because they got kids or they've got a life or whatever, or they didn't want to wake up that early or whatever it was. What's going on in qualifying that makes it ridiculous? Why are the FIA, who are notoriously stubborn, especially on these regulations, why are they so on board with changing whatever is happening?
I think Leclerc, he explained it really well. He said, what should happen is that in the last lap of Q3, you should try something that you didn't try before and try to make it stick. So it's going to be the fastest lap you're going to do the whole weekend. What happens with these cars is that if you try to do a corner a little bit faster, you're going to use more energy. Using more energy, the software is going to request this energy back. So when you go to the straight, the software is going to say, no, this is for me because I need to recover my energy. And it doesn't matter what the driver is doing. The driver is there flat out and the energy is being recovered. So ultimately, for one lap, the faster you try to go, the slower you are.
Which is...
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
well, no, I mean, I couldn't put any better than that. And I mean, the one thing that you can tell from qualifying as well, if somebody was just watching the races and not on Saturday, the reason you watch Saturday is to feel that thrill of a one-lap driver on the limit, pushing everywhere they can. And exactly to that point, they're not doing that at the moment. My favorite quote of the season so far, and it's from a man who always gives great quotes, was Fernando Alonso in Bahrain saying that the chef who worked for Aston Martin could drive the car through turn 12 there. Obviously, we know Fernando likes to be very dramatic about those things, and probably a lot of us could probably drive the current Aston Martin through turn 12. Yeah, exactly. So I think especially it was also a comment about Aston Martin, but that feeling of a lot of the great corners, and people were talking about 130R and a lot of different points in turn. I always get this because no one uses real corners anymore. It's turn 11 in Australia at the end of the long where everyone was super clipping like crazy at the end there. You were just seeing these cars just kind of cruising through these corners that used to be full curb, full commitment, and really that's gone. And a lot of people might say, well, as long as the racing's okay, what does that matter? But qualifying is a fundamental part of Formula One. It's part of where the heart and soul of the sport is who's quickest over one lap, and then can you convert it in the race? It's such a big part of the weekend. So I think it's taken some of that thrill of qualifying away. And I found all four qualifying sessions with the sprint we had as well to be really underwhelming. Really as contests just kind of felt really flat. And it's to that exact point is that you just feel like the drivers are just basically managing these computers that are on board their car. But I don't know why I said all that because Julianne described it perfectly, but I hadn't spoken for a little bit, I guess. So
I think also being a former driver, it's important for the driver to understand who is the fastest. That is a fundamental part of motorsports, and it's a fundamental part of practice, qualifying, and racing. If you're off someone by 0.3, you want to know why you're off by those 0.3. But if the driver who set pole position is 0.3 ahead of you, well, you want to know how they did it, so you can learn to go and do it yourself. So you can then challenge for pole position. You can work for it, right? And that comes down to the human side of the sport, where as a driver, your job is to take this machine and put it on the limit. You're also in charge of putting yourself on that limit as well and maintaining the focus and the concentration that's needed so you can challenge and compete. And if you're having to go 60% of what you can do through a corner, you are now, not only are you operating against the software, but you're now operating against yourself and everything that you've been taught and everything that you've learned as you were a kid. So you get taught these things when you're 8 years old, 9 years old, and now you're having to retrain all of that, which may sound easy, but it's not, because fundamentally you're wired to attack, you're wired to be aggressive, you're wired to attack a braking zone, go flat out through corners, challenge yourself in those particular situations. And so for qualifying, especially in Formula One, you know, we've seen drivers who have done some incredible things, remarkable things, like Max Verstappen in Japan last year. The car had no business being on pole position, but he worked for it, right? He took those risks, right? That gave him pole position, which eventually he worked out the win with the McLarens breathing down his neck. Some people may say that last year's Japanese Grand Prix wasn't the most exciting thing ever. I loved it because Max makes one mistake, he's toast. Like, even in the race, he's finished. It's over. Like, it's over. McLaren's got him, right? So I think when we look at qualifying and the DNA of the sport, it's important to hold on to those things, because it's what's made motorsports and racing and everything what it is today. That began, you know, like 7,500 years ago, and it's never changed. So you can't have that. I don't think you can have that change now just to try and have better racing tomorrow. So that, for me, I think qualifying is such a huge part of the sport. I think it's extremely important. I think it's imperative that they do something with it or something about it. Because, you know, I miss watching, Charles Leclerc put one on the line. Max Verstappen in Monaco in 2023. Like, I miss watching that. Like, that stuff's like edge of your seat stuff. Like, you're giving, like, think about the fan, right? The fan's paying to watch these guys, you know, do something incredible.
Yeah, I went to see the cars in the S's in the first sector in Suzuka. And after first lap, second lap, third lap, I'm like, I hope they're not pushing. I hope this is not them pushing. Because what happens is that they're so depleted with energy when they approach turn one that they approach it a lot slower. And then everything is slower after that. And it's just, if I had bought my ticket to see those corners there, I would be very, very disappointed. And I think the question now is, what can they do? I think we all accept that the lap time is going to go up, because they are going to have to change the 50-50. There's no way they can increase the thermal engine, so the combustion engine. There's no way they can increase it now, because fuel flow, everything they can do, what I was told is that it has to wait until next year. So they have to put the electrical bit down. By doing it so, of course, lap time is going to go up. It's going to be slower. But at least if drivers can actually try to do something different in qualifying to make the difference, as Tim was saying, then we're going to have qualifying back. I don't care if it's 2 seconds slower than 3 seconds slower than last year. It doesn't make a difference for us.
No, you wouldn't.
No, I was
see
just
that.
going to say, I think that it's a really
Nick.
good point, because I think there's been a quite unhealthy obsession in Formula One, especially with lap time and being like, these are the fastest cars ever. And it doesn't matter. I mean, these cars are quick in terms of lap time, but they're not thrilling to watch. So that's the exact point. I was actually going through randomly. I was flying back, and I had some Wi-Fi on the flight back, and I just go down random rabbit holes sometimes on Wikipedia. And to sum this point up, what is the Usain Bolt lap that everybody remembers from him winning golds? It's him, London 2012, 2008, running past the line, thumping his chest, screaming that he's the best. That wasn't the quickest lap that he ever ran of the 100 meters. I think it's his third quickest or fourth quickest. But it's the one you remember. You know, I couldn't tell you the three that he did quicker than that. It's a silly example maybe, but it shows you that time itself shouldn't be the be-all and end-all of what we look for in not just Formula One, but you know, in sports where the stopwatch is key, because part of it is the way it makes you feel. Then that's the exact point these guys made. I was also going down a rabbit hole about the Artemis, you know, the space program at the moment. One of the things that the astronauts used to complain about, you know, back in the 60s was, well, you're just putting us in this rocket. We can't control any of it. And that was something that the press used to knock them with. It was like, well, these guys are just in this rocket and they're not doing anything. All of us will have gone on to different radio shows and TV shows at different points and been asked, well, is it all about the driver or is it just about the car? And the biggest frustration about the current Formula One right now is they have moved it as close as I can remember to being the driver really is just an early astronaut, or, you know, a driver that really is just managing things within the car itself. So yeah, I think if the lap time goes down, but it feels more like the drivers are doing what they should be doing, then I'm all for that. Even if on paper it looks like 3, 4, 5 seconds, like ultimately that if they look quick and they look difficult to drive and it looks like the driver is doing it, then that's what the sport should be about.
Hey, you there! Did you like that video? Would you like to see more? If you like what Nailing the Apex has to offer, you should check out more of our content and subscribe to our Nailing the Apex channel by clicking the subscribe button.